spy tried to poison Ibrahim Traoré, but the president already knew. Imagine sitting in a quiet room, sipping tea under the shade of a mango tree. The air is calm, the conversation light, and everything seems normal, until you realize that the cup in your hand might be your last. This isn't fiction. This is the story of President Ibrahim Traoré, a man who faced death not on a battlefield but in a moment of supposed trust. A single ceramic cup, warm with spiced tea, became the stage for an assassination attempt so calculated, so cold-blooded, that it could only come from someone inside his own circle. But here's the twist. Traoré already knew. He saw through the betrayal before it even unfolded. How? That's where our story begins. In Burkina Faso, a nation known for its resilience and pride, President Ibrahim Traoré isn't just a leader. He's a symbol. Known as the Lion, he carries the weight of millions on his shoulders, navigating challenges both foreign and domestic. Yet even lions have enemies lurking in the shadows. On this particular day, at a military base outside Ouagadougou, something sinister was brewing. Senior officers gathered casually under a mango tree to discuss logistics for an upcoming operation. Cups of tea were passed around, a gesture of hospitality, but one cup carried more than just warmth. It carried poison, and the target, the president himself. As the young soldier handed him the cup, Traoré paused. His smile didn't falter, but his instincts screamed warning. You see, 2 hours earlier, an anonymous note had been left on his desk. Watch your tea today. They will test your trust. No name, no explanation, just those chilling words. Instead of canceling the meeting or showing fear, Traoré did what he does best. He played along. He arrived at the base, sat among men he'd known for years and waited. Waited for someone to reveal their hand. What happened next would expose layers of betrayal deeper than anyone could imagine. Colonel Yaya Konate, a senior officer with sharp eyes and colder intentions, played his part perfectly. As Traoré held the untouched cup, Konate urged him to drink, saying, "Please, sir, the tea is fresh." But Traoré didn't take the bait. With a calmness that masked the storm within, he placed the cup down and turned the tables. "You know," he said, looking directly at Konate, "I always find it fascinating how many things can hide inside something as small as a cup." The tension in the air shifted instantly. Everyone froze. Even the birds seemed to stop chirping, as if they too sensed the danger unfolding. Captain Zongo, Traoré's loyal aide, noticed the signal immediately. Years of working alongside the president had taught him to read subtle cues. When Traoré stood up, his demeanor unchanged but his presence commanding, Zongo moved swiftly. Within moments, the truth came out. The young soldier who served the tea wasn't just nervous, he was carrying a tiny vial of VX-42, a deadly neurotoxin hidden in his sock. Someone had chosen him as a pawn in a game far beyond his understanding. But who? And why? The investigation revealed a web of deceit stretching far beyond Colonel Konate, the man orchestrating the tea delivery. Notes written in code, mysterious payments, and a name repeated over and over again: Le Chacal, the Jackal. Whoever this person was, they weren't acting alone. Foreign intelligence ties pointed to a larger conspiracy, one designed to destabilize Burkina Faso by removing its strongest leader. For Traoré, this wasn't just about survival. It was about protecting his nation from forces that sought to exploit its vulnerabilities. What makes this story gripping isn't just the plot, but the characters driving it. There's Traoré, whose leadership style blends wisdom with vigilance. Then there's Colonel Konate, whose ambition blinded him to the cost of betrayal. And finally, there's Le Chacal, the shadowy figure pulling strings from behind the scenes. Each character represents different facets of power, loyalty, and corruption. Together, they paint a picture of a world where trust is both a weapon and a liability. But here's the thing. Catching the conspirators wasn't easy. Every move Traoré made was deliberate. Every decision weighed against potential consequences. He understood that arresting Konate publicly would give the real mastermind time to escape. So instead, he chose silence. Operation Glass Eye was set into motion. a covert plan involving surveillance, disguises, and patience. The team watched, waited, and eventually spotted their target, Alexandre Morel, a former French intelligence officer now operating under the alias Le Chacal. But taking him down wouldn't be straightforward. Morel was careful, almost invisible. Until he made one critical mistake. He ordered food. When Captain Zongo posed as a delivery man and slipped a listening device into Morel's apartment, the pieces finally started falling into place. Voice analysis confirmed his identity, but capturing him required precision. Traoré decided to use himself as bait, hosting a private dinner at the presidential villa. If Morel thought he had another chance to strike, he'd take it. And he did. But this time, Traoré was ready. As the assassin entered the room, disguised as a waiter, Traoré looked him straight in the eye and said, "Would you like to share a drink with your president?" That moment changed everything. Guards rushed in, pinning Morel to the ground before he could act. Poison, not guns, that was his method. But Traoré had outsmarted him. Or had he? While Morel was captured and silenced, questions remained. Who else was involved? Were there other jackals waiting in the shadows? And most importantly, how long could Traoré keep playing this dangerous game without losing? The aftermath of these events left a lasting impression on Burkina Faso. Traoré didn't just survive, he used the experience to teach others. At the National Military Academy, he addressed hundreds of cadets, holding up the very cup that almost killed him. "This cup almost ended my life," he told them. "Not because of the tea inside, but because of the trust I placed in the wrong hands." He emphasized honor, integrity, and vigilance, reminding the young soldiers that true strength lies in loyalty, not weapons. The cup now sits on a pedestal at the academy, a symbol of survival and resilience. Yet, despite the victory, Traoré knows the fight isn't over. Enemies don't disappear overnight and threats evolve. As he watches the sunset from the palace rooftop, reflecting on the day's events, one thought lingers. How many more attempts will there be? And how far is he willing to go to protect his people? The answer lies ahead in battles yet to come. But for now, the lion remains standing, ready to face whatever comes next. And here we leave you on the edge of your seat, wondering what happens next. Will Traoré continue to outwit his enemies? Can he safeguard Burkina Faso from those who seek to undermine it? Stay tuned for the next chapter in this incredible story of courage, betrayal, and survival. To understand the gravity of what happened that day, you need to know who President Ibrahim Traoré is and why someone would want him gone. Known as the Lion of Burkina Faso, he wasn't just a leader, he was a symbol of hope for millions. Rising through the ranks during some of the country's darkest years, Traoré earned his reputation not by flexing power, but by standing firm. When others faltered, he believed in justice over revenge, progress over politics. But ideals like these often come with enemies, both within and beyond borders. Colonel Yaya Konate, on the other hand, was a different kind of man. A seasoned officer with decades of experience, he had once been respected, even admired. Over time, however, something shifted. Whether it was greed, envy, or external manipulation, no one could say for sure. What mattered now was his role in this betrayal. As the orchestrator of the tea delivery, Konate thought he'd covered all his bases. The young soldier chosen to serve the poisoned cup, an unwitting pawn, likely coerced or bribed into compliance. The neurotoxin itself, hidden so well that only a trained eye, or perhaps paranoia, could have detected it. Yet, despite all these precautions, Konate underestimated one thing: the president's instincts. For Traoré, vigilance wasn't just a habit, it was survival. His rise to leadership hadn't been smooth. He'd faced coups, threats, and assassination rumors long before this incident. Each challenge taught him something new about human nature. People weren't always what they seemed, and trust, while necessary, could be deadly if misplaced. That anonymous note warning him about the tea, it wasn't the first time someone had tried to tip him off anonymously. In fact, such cryptic messages were almost routine. Some were genuine, others distractions meant to throw him off balance. This time, though, it felt different. Something about the phrasing, "They will test your trust," resonated deeply. So instead of ignoring it, Traoré leaned into it, and that decision saved his life. As the investigation unfolded, more layers of the conspiracy came to light. Captain Zongo played a critical role here. Working closely with counterintelligence officers, he pieced together fragments of evidence that painted a chilling picture. The notebook found in the young soldier's bag revealed coded entries linking back to payments made weeks before the attempted poisoning. One name kept appearing, Le Chacal. At first it seemed like a ghost story, a mythical figure whispered about in intelligence circles. But as they dug deeper, the truth emerged. Alexandre Morel, a former French intelligence operative turned mercenary, was behind it all. Morel, or Le Chacal, specialized in destabilizing nations from within. His methods were subtle yet devastating. By targeting key figures like Traoré, he aimed to create chaos, opening doors for foreign interests to exploit. For Burkina Faso, still grappling with internal challenges, losing its president would have been catastrophic. It wasn't just about removing a leader, it was about dismantling a nation's spirit. And that's where Traoré drew his line in the sand. He wouldn't let fear dictate his actions, nor would he allow betrayal to go unanswered. The tension escalated as Operation Glass Eye took shape. Every move was calculated, every detail scrutinized. Disguised operatives watched Apartment 3B day and night, waiting for any sign of activity. When Morel finally slipped up by ordering food, it felt like fate intervening. Zongo, posing as a delivery man, managed to plant a listening device without raising suspicion. The moment the recording confirmed Morel's voice, the team knew they had their man. But capturing him required finesse. An arrest in broad daylight risked international backlash, while a raid might give him time to escape. Instead, Traoré devised a plan that played directly into Morel's arrogance. Invite him to a private dinner under the guise of high-level discussions. If Morel thought he had another chance to strike, he'd take it. Back at the palace, preparations for the dinner were meticulous. Counterintelligence officers replaced the catering staff, ensuring every item, from plates to salt shakers, was checked and marked. Hidden microphones lined the dining area, capturing even the faintest sound. Traoré himself opted for simplicity, wearing a modest traditional tunic rather than formal military attire. He wanted to appear approachable, unguarded. Meanwhile, Zongo monitored everything from the surveillance room, eyes glued to screens, displaying live feeds of the apartment block. Nothing moved without his knowledge. At 7:30 p.m., the guests arrived. 4 carefully selected individuals sat around the table, each aware of the stakes but outwardly calm. Conversations flowed naturally, masking the underlying tension. Then halfway through the meal, the unexpected happened. A waiter entered the room, carrying a tray of drinks. Zongo froze. "That's not one of ours," he whispered urgently into his mic. Cameras zoomed in on the intruder. His movements were deliberate, controlled, but there was a slight tremor in his right hand, a telltale sign of nerves. He placed the tray on the table and stepped back, blending into the shadows. Traoré raised his glass, catching the man's gaze. With a smile that didn't reach his eyes, he said, "Would you like to share a drink with your president?" The room fell silent. The waiter hesitated, then reached for something inside his sleeve. Before he could act, guards burst in, pinning him to the ground. Traoré stood slowly, his expression unreadable. "No gun this time?" he asked, his voice low and steady. "Just poison again? You really thought the same trick would work twice?" Morel alias Le Chacal glared up at him, hatred flashing in his eyes. "You've made enemies you cannot fight," he spat. Traoré crouched beside him, his tone calm but resolute. "I'm not fighting them," he said. "I'm outliving them." With those words, the operation concluded. Morel was taken away silently, flown to a secure detention facility where he'd remain indefinitely. No press release, no public spectacle, just silence, a message louder than any announcement. But the aftermath left lingering questions. Who else was involved? How many more jackals lurked in the shadows waiting for their turn? And most importantly, how far was Traoré willing to go to protect his people? These thoughts weighed heavily on him as he returned to his office next morning, holding the ceramic cup that had nearly ended his life. Washed clean, it looked harmless now, yet it carried the weight of everything that had transpired. Later that afternoon, Traoré addressed the cadets at the National Military Academy. Standing before hundreds of young faces, he held up the cup, turning it into a symbol of resilience. "This cup almost ended my life," he told them. "Not because of the tea inside, but because of the trust I placed in the wrong hands." His words resonated deeply, reminding them that true strength lies not in weapons, but in integrity. As he placed the cup on a pedestal beside the Academy flag, a collective understanding passed through the crowd. This wasn't just a lesson in survival, it was a call to action. Yet as Traoré watched the sunset from the palace rooftop that evening, he knew the battle wasn't over. Enemies don't disappear overnight, and threats evolve. Somewhere out there another jackal was plotting, another cup being prepared. But Traoré remained steadfast. He refused to kneel, refused to break. Because for him, leadership wasn't about ruling, it was about enduring. And endure he would, no matter the cost. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and red, President Ibrahim Traoré sat alone on the palace rooftop. The ceramic cup, the same one that had nearly cost him his life, rested. Beside him, its surface cool under his fingertips. He ran his thumb along the rim, feeling the weight of everything it represented: betrayal, survival, resilience. It wasn't just an object anymore. It was a story, a lesson, a warning. But even as he reflected, he knew the danger hadn't passed. Somewhere out there, another jackal waited, biding their time. The next morning, intelligence reports landed on his desk. Morel's capture had sent ripples through shadowy networks, but not all threads had been pulled. A name surfaced repeatedly in intercepted communications: Operation Silent Dagger. Its purpose? To destabilize Burkina Faso by targeting key figures within the government. Traoré wasn't surprised. What shocked him was the scope. It wasn't limited to his country. Other nations were also being targeted, their leaders marked for removal. Whoever stood behind this operation wasn't playing small games. They were orchestrating chaos on a continental scale. Captain Zongo brought the update during breakfast. "Sir," he said cautiously, "we've identified 3 individuals linked to Silent Dagger operating inside our borders. One is a diplomat at the French consulate. Another works for a foreign NGO, and the third," he hesitated, then added, "is a high-ranking officer in our own military." Traoré didn't flinch. He'd suspected as much. Betrayal often came from those closest to power. Picking up the cup, he turned it over in his hands. "Tell me something, Captain," he said quietly. "Do you think these men believe what they're doing is right? Or are they simply tools like the young soldier who carried the poison?" Zongo considered the question. "Some might believe they're serving a greater cause, sir. Others, they're just greedy. Power does strange things to people." Traoré nodded. "Then we'll treat them accordingly. Those who can be saved, we save. Those who cannot." He let the sentence trail off, leaving the implication hanging heavy in the air. Over the following days, Operation Glasseye expanded into Phase 2. Undercover operatives infiltrated diplomatic circles, posing as aides, translators, and even journalists. Surveillance intensified around suspected traitors. Every move was documented, every conversation recorded. Yet Traoré insisted on restraint. No arrests would be made until they had irrefutable proof, and until they could dismantle the entire network, not just isolated pieces. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. During a routine sweep of encrypted messages, analysts uncovered a meeting scheduled for midnight at an abandoned warehouse near the outskirts of Ouagadougou. The location was remote, the timing suspicious. Someone was planning something big. Traoré assembled his team immediately. "This isn't just about catching conspirators," he told them. "This is about ending Silent Dagger once and for all." That night, darkness cloaked the city as armed units surrounded the warehouse. Inside, voices echoed faintly, discussing logistics and deadlines. Through thermal imaging, Zongo counted 6 figures moving about. One of them matched the profile of the high-ranking officer, a man Traoré had trusted implicitly. Seeing the evidence unfold before his eyes was a bitter pill to swallow, but Traoré showed no emotion. His focus remained razor-sharp. At precisely 12:15 a.m., the signal was given. Floodlights illuminated the warehouse, blinding those inside. Within seconds, the doors were breached, and the suspects were apprehended. Among them was the officer, his face pale with shock. As he was led away in handcuffs, he stared at Traoré, pleading. "I did it for my family. They threatened them." Traoré met his gaze without anger, only sadness. "Your loyalty should have been to your nation first," he said softly. "Now, you'll learn the cost of misplaced allegiance." In the aftermath, the full extent of Operation Silent Dagger unraveled. Documents revealed ties to foreign powers seeking to exploit Burkina Faso's resources. Arrests spanned multiple countries, exposing a web of corruption that reached far beyond anyone's initial expectations. For Traoré, however, the victory wasn't about vengeance. It was about protection. His people deserved peace, stability, and leaders who prioritized their welfare above personal gain. Weeks later, standing once again before the cadets at the National Military Academy, Traoré delivered a final address. Holding the ceramic cup aloft, he spoke with conviction. "This cup almost ended my life," he reminded them. "But it also taught me something invaluable, that trust must be earned, not given freely. That vigilance is not paranoia, it's responsibility. And that true strength lies not in weapons or wealth, but in integrity." He placed the cup back on its pedestal, now encased in glass as a permanent exhibit at the academy. Cadets filed past it silently, each pausing to reflect on its significance. Some saw it as a reminder of danger, others as a symbol of hope. Either way, its message resonated deeply. As Traoré returned to the palace that evening, he allowed himself a rare moment of quiet satisfaction. The battles weren't over, he knew that better than anyone. But progress had been made. Enemies had been exposed, lessons learned, and futures secured. Most importantly, the lion still roared. Sitting on the rooftop once more, he gazed at the stars scattered across the night sky. Each one seemed to pulse with possibility, reminding him of the countless lives depending on his leadership. For Ibrahim Traoré, the fight wasn't just about surviving, it was about enduring, about standing tall when others faltered, about refusing to kneel no matter how fierce the storm. And so, as the world continued to spin, the lion remained steadfast, ready to face whatever came next. Because for him, leadership wasn't about ruling, it was about protecting. And protect he would until his last breath.